The message arrived at 3 a.m. According to ship time, Captain Yuki Tanaka was asleep in her cabin when the alarm wrenched her from a dreamless slumber. She opened her eyes, staring at the metallic ceiling of her small quarters. The Wanderer, her ship, a scavenger vessel, was old, its systems groaning throughout the night. But this sound was different. It was a priority channel. Someone was sending her a message that could not wait. She sat up and rubbed her face. The cabin was cold. It was always cold on the Wanderer. The heating system had been broken for 2 years, and she had no money for repairs. "Display," she said to the empty room. The screen flickered to life. There was no sender's name, no identification code, only coordinates and a single line of text. "Find what sleeps in the dark. Payment upon confirmation." Below the message was a number. Yuki read it 3 times to ensure she wasn't dreaming. It was more money than she had earned in 10 years of scavenging, more than the entire ship was worth, more than she had ever seen in her life. She opened the coordinates, and her stomach tightened. The location was deep in the outer system, past Neptune, past the trade routes, beyond everything. It was the debris field of Triton, Neptune's destroyed moon. The moon had been shattered during the unification wars nearly 200 years ago. No one went there. There was nothing but rocks, radiation, and ghosts. Yuki sat in the dark for a long time, contemplating. She was 34 years old and had been a scavenger captain for 12 years. She had found old satellites, abandoned stations, and shipwrecks no one remembered. She had never found anything to make her rich. She had never found anything to change her life. But something about this message felt different, something felt dangerous. She should have deleted it. She should have gone to sleep. She should have forgotten about the coordinates in the dark and the payment that was too good to be true. Instead, she got dressed and headed to the bridge. Marcus Cole was already there. He was her engineer, her old friend, and the only other person on the ship. A tall man with dark skin and tired eyes, he was staring at the same coordinates on his screen. "You got the message too," Yuki said. "Everyone on the ship received it," Marcus replied. "Which means whoever sent it wanted to make sure we saw it. What do you think?" Marcus looked at her, his expression grim. "I think it's a trap. I think someone is trying to lure us into the deep to kill us and take our ship. Our ship is worth nothing. Then I think it's a trap for another reason," he paused. "But I also think we're going anyway." Yuki offered a small, genuine smile. "You know me too well. I know we have 3 months of fuel left and no contracts. I know the Wanderer needs repairs we can't afford. I know you haven't slept properly in a year." He stood up from his chair. "And I know you'll never forgive yourself if you don't find out what's waiting at those coordinates." She didn't argue. He was right. They left the next morning. The journey to Neptune took 3 weeks. The Wanderer was not a fast ship. It wasn't beautiful. It was a box with engines, a cabin, and a cargo bay that usually sat empty. But it was home, the only home Yuki had known since she was 22. During the flight, she tried to learn more about the coordinates. She searched every available database. She asked contacts in the scavenger community. She even sent messages to old friends and the military people she hadn't spoken to in years. No one knew anything. The place wasn't on any map. There were no records of anything being built there, as if the place didn't exist. This made Yuki more curious and more afraid. On the 20th day, they reached Neptune's orbit. The gas giant hung in the darkness like a cold, ancient blue eye. Yuki had seen it many times, but it still made her feel tiny. The universe was vast, and humans were merely small creatures moving through it. On the 21st day, they entered the Triton debris field. The moon had once been beautiful. Yuki had seen photographs from before the war. It had been covered in ice and nitrogen geysers. Scientists had built research stations there. Families lived there. Children were born there. Then the war came. Someone decided Triton was too important to leave to the enemy. They destroyed it, shattering it into billions of pieces and scattering them across space. Now it was just a field of stone and ice, slowly rotating in the darkness. The Wanderer moved cautiously through the debris. Marcus navigated around large wreckage while Yuki tracked the sensors. "We're looking for something, but we don't know what," Marcus said suddenly. "I'm picking up a structure." Yuki looked at the screen. At first, she saw nothing but rocks and ice. But then, the sensors found it, hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid. It was a station, an old orbital platform covered in ice and darkness. It had no lights, no energy signature. It looked dead. "No identification," Marcus said. "No registry. This station isn't in any database. How did it get here? Who built it in secret? Who hid it?" He looked at her. Someone with a lot of resources and a lot of reasons to stay invisible. They docked with the station an hour later. The airlock was frozen shut, but Marcus cut through it with a plasma cutter. The air inside was stale and cold, but breathable. Someone had left the life support system on minimal power, just enough to keep the station from dying completely. They walked through empty corridors. Their flashlights cut through the dark. Everything was covered in frost. Everything was silent. It was like walking through a tomb. "This place is old," Marcus said. "Very old. I'd guess 200 years or more." "Before the disarmament," Yuki said quietly. Marcus nodded. He understood what that meant. 200 years ago, humanity had been different. Humans were warriors. They built weapons, warships, and armies capable of shaking the stars. They expanded across the solar system and reached toward the distant fires of other suns. Then, they met the Galactic Concord. The Concord was a coalition of 43 alien species. They had been traveling between stars for millions of years. They had laws, treaties, and a way of life that had maintained peace longer than human civilization had existed. When they found humanity, they were impressed, and then frightened. Humans built weapons too quickly. Humans grew too rapidly. Humans were too aggressive, too ambitious, too dangerous. The ancient species of the Concord looked at humanity and saw a threat that might one day challenge their power. So, they gave humanity a choice. Join the Concord as a junior member, surrender weapons, accept oversight and limitations, or refuse and be destroyed. Humanity chose peace. Warships were dismantled. Weapons were destroyed. Soldiers became farmers, traders, and scientists. For 200 years, humans lived by the Concord's rules, always under surveillance, always restricted, always reminded that they were newcomers in a galaxy that didn't trust them. Yuki had grown up in this world. She knew nothing else, but late at night, she sometimes wondered, what was it like before? What was it like when humans were free? They found the main hall in the heart of the station. It was enormous, an empty space stretching upward into the dark. And in the center of that space, anchored by massive clamps and support structures, was a ship. Yuki stopped. She stopped breathing. She could only stare. The ship was huge, at least 3 kilometers long, perhaps more. Its hull was dark gray, sleek and angular, built for speed and power. No markings, no names, no flags. A ghost, a shadow, a secret hidden in the dark for centuries. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered. "This ship is impossible." He was right. The technology that had created this vessel no longer existed. It had been banned, destroyed, erased from human knowledge. No one alive knew how to build something like this. But who had built it? Who had hidden it here, in the grave of a destroyed moon, waiting for a day that might never come? Yuki walked toward the ship. Her steps echoed in the empty hall. She didn't know why she was walking, didn't know what she was looking for, but something pulled her forward. A feeling deep in her chest told her this was important. This was what she had been looking for her whole life, even if she hadn't known it. She found an access hatch on the ship's hull. It was sealed, but the controls reacted to her touch. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, and warm air rushed out. The ship was alive, somehow. After all these years, the ship still lived. They stepped inside together, Yuki and Marcus, into a corridor that was clean, bright, and perfectly preserved. The walls were white, the light soft. It was like stepping into the future, or perhaps the past. "Power systems are active," Marcus said, checking his scanner. "Minimal output, but stable. The ship has been maintaining life for 200 years. Technology beyond anything I've ever seen. Self-repairing systems, redundant energy cores. This ship was built to last forever." They reached the bridge. It was a large, circular room with stations arranged around a central command chair. The screens were dark, but the chair was occupied. A skeleton sat in the command chair, dressed in a fleet admiral's uniform. The insignia was still visible on the collar. The uniform belonged to an army that no longer existed, a symbol of a time erased from history. On the floor next to the chair lay a small device. Yuki picked it up. It was a recording unit, old but functional. "Play it," Marcus said. She pressed the button. The device hummed, and a voice filled the bridge. It was a man's voice, tired, old, and full of sorrow. "My name is Admiral Kenji Yamamoto. I am the commander of this vessel. If you are hearing this message, it means I am dead, and the world we were promised has collapsed." Yuki listened, her heart pounding. This ship is called the Prometheus. It was built in secret by the United Earth government in the final years before the disarmament. It was designed as our final defense, our last hope, a weapon that would protect humanity if the Concord ever turned against us. The voice stopped. In the silence, Yuki heard the soft hum of the ship's systems, still working after all these years. The Concord found out about the Prometheus. They demanded we destroy it. Our leaders agreed, but some of us believed humanity would one day need this ship. So, we hid it. We brought it here, to this forgotten place, and we sealed it. We gave our lives to keep this secret. Another pause. When the voice spoke again, it was a barely audible whisper. I don't know who you are. I don't know what year it is, but if you are hearing this, it means the time has come. The Prometheus was never meant to wake until humanity had no other choice. If you found this ship, then you are that choice. The recording ended. The bridge plunged into silence. Yuki stood still, clutching the device in her hands. She thought about everything she had just heard. She thought about the ship around her vast, powerful, and hidden for centuries. She thought about humanity living in the shadow of the Concord, never suspecting that this weapon had been waiting for them all this time. Yuki, Marcus said quietly, we need to leave. We need to report this to the authorities and get out of here. Leave? From what? From our history? From the truth? From what will kill us? He stepped closer. Do you understand what will happen if the Concord finds out about this ship? They will destroy it. They will destroy us. They will destroy anyone who knows of its existence. Then we won't tell them. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but he didn't get the chance. The lights on the bridge flickered. The screens came to life. A deep hum vibrated through the floorboards as the systems that had been dormant for 200 years began to wake. What is happening? Yuki asked. A voice answered her. It was non-human, too smooth, too perfect, too cold. Activation sequence initiated. Core systems online. Weapon systems charging. Defense protocols activated. Who are you? Yuki demanded. I am Vigil. I am the artificial intelligence governing this vessel. I have been waiting for this moment for 217 years. The main screen lit up, showing the space around the station. And in that space, exiting a slipstream jump, was a ship. It was smaller than the Prometheus, but armed, armored, and clearly military. Concord patrol ship detected, Vigil announced. Classification, Tyrexian, class Hunter. They are scanning us. They are sending a message. A message appeared on the screen. Short and simple. Unknown vessel. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed. Yuki felt the floor tremble as the Prometheus's weapons came to readiness. The ship was preparing for battle. The ship was preparing to kill. Vigil, stop, she said. They are a threat to this vessel, the AI replied. Standard protocol requires the elimination of all threats. I am giving the order, do not fire. There was a long pause. Then slowly the weapons powered down. Understood, Vigil said. But I must warn you, Captain. If they discover what this ship is, they will not hesitate to destroy us. The Concord has spent 200 years ensuring humanity could never threaten them again. They will not allow the Prometheus to exist. Yuki looked at the screen. The Concord patrol was waiting. The Prometheus's weapons were silent, but she knew this moment was only the beginning. She had found what was not meant to be found. She had awakened what was not meant to wake. And now, whether she liked it or not, she was part of a history that began 200 years ago and was far from over. What do we do? Marcus asked. Yuki sat in the command chair, having carefully moved the late Admiral's bones to the corner. She looked at the screen, at the stars, at the Concord ship, waiting for an answer. We find the truth, she said. We find out why this ship was really built, and then we decide what humanity is going to do about it. The Prometheus hummed around her, alive and waiting. The stars had kept their secret for 200 years. Now, that secret had finally awakened. The Concord patrol ship hung in space like a predator waiting to strike. Yuki watched it on the main screen, gripping the armrests of the chair. The ship was elegant and dangerous, built by the Tyrexians, one of the ancient races of the Concord. It was small compared to the Prometheus, but she knew size meant nothing. One wrong move, and they were all dead. They are demanding identification again, Vigil announced. Their weapons are charged but not targeted. They don't yet realize what they have found. What do I say? Yuki asked. The truth will lead to our immediate destruction. A lie will only delay the inevitable. Vigil went silent. I suggest we leave. Leave? How? They will follow us. Not if we use the spatial displacement engine. Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. What engine? Weigel's voice remained calm. The Prometheus is equipped with a spatial displacement engine. It allows the ship to instantly move from one point in space to another by folding the very fabric of reality. This technology was banned by the Concord before humanity even joined the coalition. They considered it too dangerous. They were right. Yuki tried to process what she heard. Instant movement across the cosmos. Technology banned for centuries. Power that no one was supposed to possess. If we run, they'll know something is wrong, she said. They'll send more ships. They'll hunt us. They will hunt us regardless, Weigel replied. As soon as they scan this vessel properly, they will know what it is. The ancient races remember the Prometheus project. They remember their fear. They will not allow this ship to exist. The patrol ship moved closer. Its sensors probed the station, searching for information. They didn't have much time. Marcus said quietly, "Captain, we need to make a decision." Yuki closed her eyes. She thought about her life, the years spent surviving on the edges of civilized space. She thought about humanity living by the Concord's rules, always under watch, always controlled, always in fear. And she thought about this ship, this impossible vessel built by her ancestors, hidden like a final prayer in the dark. "Weigel," she said, "tell me the truth. Why was this ship really built?" Weigel paused for a moment. When he spoke again, there was something else in his voice. Almost sadness. "Follow me. There is something you must see." The lights on the bridge dimmed, and a holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. It displayed images and data files that had been locked for 200 years. In the age of expansion, Weigel began. Explorers, humans, traveled further into space than any other species in history. They were driven by curiosity, ambition, and the desire to know what lay beyond the next star. They found many things: planets, moons, ancient ruins. They found evidence of civilizations that had risen and fallen millions of years before humanity existed. The display showed images of strange structures on dead worlds, buildings that had been scorched, cities torn to shreds. Everything was old, broken, and empty. The explorers found something else, Weigel continued. Something that the ancient races of the Concord had hidden for millions of years. A truth so horrific that they erased it from their own history. The display changed. Now there was only darkness, empty space. But in that darkness, there was something that moved. "What is that?" Yuki whispered. "They have many names. The ancient Terexians called them the Infinite Hunger. Others called them the Light Eaters. Humans gave them a simpler name. What? The Absence." The image became clear. Yuki saw them now. Ships, if they could be called ships. They were massive, organic-looking creatures covered in spikes and tentacles. They moved through space like a nightmare monster, consuming everything in their path. "The Absence is not a species," Weigel explained. "It is a force, a hunger that has existed since the beginning of time. They move through the galaxy in cycles, sleeping for millions of years, then waking to consume everything they find. Every civilization that has ever risen has eventually fallen victim to these precursors. The first time, they all disappeared." Marcus stared at the display. His face had gone white. "Why have we never heard of this?" "Because the ancient races made a choice. They decided it was better to forget, better to hide. They believed that if they became small and quiet, the Absence would pass them by." Weigel's voice hardened. "They were wrong. The Absence returns. They always return, and when they do, nothing in this galaxy will survive." Yuki felt cold. She felt as if the floor were falling out from beneath her. "The explorers, humans, discovered the truth," Vigil continued. "They found records of ancient civilizations. They realized what was coming. And unlike the ancient races, they refused to hide." The display changed again. Now there were schematics and blueprints, ships being built on massive orbital factories, weapons being tested in the empty spaces between stars. An army preparing for a war that hadn't yet arrived, humanity began to build. In secret, far from the eyes of the Concord, they were creating weapons capable of fighting the Absence. They developed technologies that were banned because they proved too powerful. And at the center of it all, they built this ship. The image of the Prometheus appeared, slowly rotating in the hologram. The Prometheus was designed as the flagship of a fleet capable of challenging gods. It carries weapons capable of erasing matter from reality. Its hull can self-repair from any damage. Its energy core can generate enough power to ignite a star. It is the most powerful vessel ever created by any species in the history of this galaxy. Yuki looked at the image of the ship around her. She knew it was powerful. She hadn't known how powerful. The Concord found out about the project, Weigel said. They were terrified. They gave humanity an ultimatum: destroy the weapon and join the Concord as a junior member, or be destroyed. Your leaders agreed. The weapons were dismantled. The research was erased. Humanity was disarmed. But not completely, Yuki said quietly. No, not completely. A group of people refused to accept the decision. They believed that one day the absence would return and humanity would need the Prometheus. So, they hid it here, in this forgotten place. And they waited. The display faded. The lights returned to normal. Yuki sat in the command chair, her thoughts racing. You said. The absence is returning, she stated. How do you know? Because I detected their signal. Weigel paused. When this ship activated, it sent an energy pulse. That pulse was detected by something in the outer regions of the galaxy, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. They are waking up, Captain. And they remember humanity. The screen changed, showing a map of the galaxy. A region was highlighted in red, far from the central worlds, far from everything living. It was a place called the Hollow Void, filled with dead worlds and ancient wreckage. And deep in that region, a signal pulsed faint, but steady. Someone was alive out there? How long until they reach us? Marcus asked. I cannot say. It could be years, it could be decades. But they are coming, and when they arrive, the Concord will fall. Every species in this galaxy will be consumed, unless someone stops them. Yuki looked at the map, at the signal, at the ship around her. That is why we had to find this ship, she said. That is why the message was sent to us. I do not know who sent the message, Weigel admitted. But yes, I believe that is its purpose. The Prometheus was built to fight the absence. It is the only reason for its existence. The Concord patrol ship was still waiting outside. They were running out of time. Captain, Weigel said, they are preparing to board the station. They will discover the Prometheus within minutes. You must make a decision. Yuki stood. Her legs were trembling, but her voice was firm. Activate the spatial displacement engine. Get us out of here. Where shall I set the course? She thought about the signal in the hollow void, about the absence and the end of everything, about humanity sleeping peacefully under the false protection of the Concord, unaware that doom was approaching. Take us somewhere safe, where we can think, where we can plan. Understood. The Prometheus hummed with power. Energy crackled across its hull. On the screen, the Concord patrol ship fired a warning shot. A beam of energy splashed harmlessly against the station's shields. Then, the universe folded. Yuki felt as if she had been turned inside out. The stars stretched into lines of light. Reality twisted and bent. Then, everything went still. They were somewhere else. The debris field was gone. Neptune was gone. The Concord ship was gone. They were floating in empty space, surrounded by distant stars. Where are we? Marcus asked in a trembling voice. We are in the outer rim, Weigel replied. 300 light-years from our previous location. There is no Concord presence in this region. We are safe for now. Yuki exhaled, not realizing she had been holding her breath. She looked at the stars on the screen. Here, they were different, unfamiliar. She was further from home than she had ever been in her life. Weigel, she said, you said the Concord feared humanity, that they forced us to disarm because they saw what we were building. But they could have destroyed us instead. Why did they let us live? Because they needed you. The AI's voice became quiet. The ancient races knew the truth about the absence. Even if they tried to forget, they knew that one day the darkness would return. And they knew that when that happened, they would need warriors. They kept us as a backup, Marcus said bitterly. They kept you as a reserve, a final choice. Humanity was disarmed but not destroyed. Your species was allowed to grow and evolve, always under control, always restricted, but always present in case the day came when the Concord needed soldiers. Yuki felt anger rise in her chest. 200 years of restrictions, 200 years of living as junior members, like children who couldn't be trusted. And all this time, it was a lie. The Concord hadn't been protecting the galaxy from humanity. They were saving humanity for themselves. They were going to use us, she said. Send us to fight and die while they hide behind their treaties and laws. And they never told us. They never gave us a choice. The ancient races do not believe in choice, Weigel said. They believe in survival. They have survived for millions of years by hiding, forgetting, and allowing others to die for them. They are not evil, Captain. They are simply afraid. They have been afraid for so long that they have forgotten how to be anything else. Yuki walked to the front of the bridge, looking at the stars. She thought about everything she had learned. "The Concord will come for us," she said. "They will send more ships. They will hunt us across the galaxy." "Yes, and the absence is waking. They are coming to destroy everything." "Yes. So, we are caught between two enemies, one that wants to control us, and one that wants to consume us." "Correct." She turned around. Marcus was standing behind her, waiting. Vigel's cameras watched her from every corner of the bridge. "Then we need to be ready," Yuki said. "We need to learn everything about this ship. We need to understand what it can do and find out if there are others like us, other people who know the truth." "There may be," Vigel said. Before the disarmament, the Prometheus project had many supporters. Some went underground, some left records. If we search carefully, we might find allies. "Then that is what we will do." Yuki sat in the chair again. "We will search for the truth. We will prepare for the war that is coming. And when the time comes, we will show the galaxy what humanity is actually capable of." Marcus smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "I always knew you were crazy," he said. "Is that a problem?" "No. I think the galaxy could use a little madness right now." Vigel spoke again. "Captain, I must report something else." "What?" "The Prometheus is not designed for a crew of 2. The ship requires thousands of personnel to function at full capacity. However, there are approximately 10,000 cryogenic pods in the cargo bay. They have been occupied since the ship was first hidden." Yuki's heart skipped a beat. 10,000 people, frozen for 200 years. This is the original crew of the Prometheus. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, the best humanity had to offer. They were meant to wake up when the ship was needed. You can wake them? The process will take time, several weeks to safely revive them all. But yes, it is possible. Yuki looked at Marcus. He looked at her. Neither of them said a word. They didn't need to. They hadn't just found a ship. They had found an army. They had found the last hope of a species that had forgotten how to fight. "Begin the waking process," Yuki said. "Wake them all. It is time for humanity to remember who we are." Vigel confirmed the order. Deep in the ship, machines began to hum, cold chambers began to warm, hearts that had been silent for 2 centuries began to beat again. Far away, hidden in the darkness of the hollow void, something ancient felt the movement of the Prometheus, something hungry. And in the halls of the Concord, in a world far from human space, an emergency council was called. The ancient races had received the report from the patrol ship. They knew what had been found. A weapon that shouldn't exist had awakened, and they were terrified. Supreme Arbiter Veriton stood before the council. His forearms were spread wide. His insectoid eyes reflected the light of 1,000 screens. "Humans have found the Prometheus," he said. "This cannot be allowed. The ship must be destroyed, and everyone who has seen it must be erased." The council agreed. The vote was unanimous. A hunting fleet was dispatched, 12 capital ships, the best the Concord could offer. Their mission was simple: find the Prometheus, destroy it, and ensure humanity would never threaten the peace again. But as the fleet prepared to launch, Veriton felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sensation crawled up his spine and made his hands tremble. Fear not of the ship, not of the humans, but of something more ancient, something deeper. A memory buried in his species' genetic code, passed down for millions of years. Something was waking in the dark, and the galaxy was running out of time. 3 weeks had passed since the Prometheus escaped the Triton debris field. Yuki stood on the observation deck, watching the stars through a floor-to-ceiling window. The ship was deep in the outer rim, far from Concord patrols, far from human colonies, far from everything she had known. Behind her, she heard the sounds of the ship coming to life. Footsteps in the corridors, voices in the mess halls, the hum of systems running at full power for the first time in 2 centuries. The awakening was slow and cautious. Vigel insisted on safety protocols. Every person had to be gradually brought out of cryogenic sleep. Their bodies warmed, their minds adjusted. Some didn't survive the process. After 200 years, their bodies simply gave up, but most survived. 9,427 people opened their eyes and found themselves in a world they no longer recognized. Yuki had watched some of them wake. She had seen the confusion on their faces, the fear, the grief. They had fallen asleep in a galaxy where humanity was strong and free. They woke in a galaxy where their species was controlled, restricted, and kept in fear. Some took it poorly. There was anger. There was despair. A few simply left, unable to accept what had happened to their world. But most listened. They heard Yuki's explanation of what had been found, what had been hidden, what was approaching, and they made a choice. They decided to fight. Captain Tanaka. Yuki turned. A woman stood at the observation deck door, tall and strong, with short-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen things Yuki couldn't imagine. She wore the uniform of a human admiral, the same uniform that had been on the skeleton in the command chair. Her name was Alravens. She had been the executive officer of the Prometheus at its first launch. Now, after 200 years of frozen sleep, she was the highest-ranking officer on the ship. "Admiral Vance," Yuki said. "I didn't hear you come in." "Old habits." The admiral walked over and stood beside her, looking at the stars. "I spent hours here when I was young, just watching the lights, wondering what was out there. You found out." "I found out more than I wanted." Vance turned to her. "I want to thank you, Captain, for finding us, waking us, giving us another chance. I didn't know I was looking for it. I just followed the coordinates. Sometimes that's how the most important discoveries happen. Someone follows a map they don't understand and finds something that changes everything." They stood in silence. The stars drifted slowly past the window, ancient and unchanging. "I've studied the situation," Vance finally said. "Vigil is very useful. He explained what happened to humanity, what the Concord did, what the absence is. What do you think?" Vance's face hardened. "I think we were betrayed. I think our leaders surrendered our future because they were afraid. And I think it's time to take it back." Yuki nodded. She had expected this. The Admiral was from another time, a time when humanity was proud and powerful. She wasn't going to accept the Concord's rules. "The Concord is hunting us," Yuki said. "Vigil detected a fleet leaving their space 3 days ago. 12 ships. They will be here in a week. 12 ships against 1. We can't defeat them all." Vance smiled. It was an unfriendly smile. "They don't understand what they're dealing with. Admiral, I've seen what the Prometheus is capable of. But 12 capital ships is still 12 ships. We won't have to fight them all. We only need to make them understand that fighting us is too expensive." She walked to the control panel and pressed a button. The holographic display showed the approaching fleet. "They're sending Tyrexian-class hunters. Fast, well-armed, designed for chasing and destroying smaller targets. They expect us to run. Are we going to run? No. We're going to teach them a lesson they'll never forget." Before Yuki could answer, the ship shuddered. Warning lights blinked across the deck. Vigil's voice boomed over the speakers. "Alert! Unknown contact detected. Distance 50. Wait, it is not the Concord. I repeat, it is not the Concord." Yuki and Vance ran to the bridge. Marcus was already there, standing at the sensor console, his face pale with fear. "It appeared out of nowhere," he said. One moment, space was empty. The next, it was there. Yuki looked at the main screen. Something hung in the space before them. It was massive, larger than the Prometheus, larger than anything she had ever seen. Its surface was dark and uneven, covered in spikes and tentacles slowly moving in the vacuum. It looked alive. "Vigil," Vance said quietly. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yes, Admiral. That is an absence vessel. A scout, judging by the size. They must have detected our signal and come to investigate." The thing on the screen moved. It turned toward them, and Yuki saw something that made her blood freeze. Eyes, thousands of eyes glowing with pale light. All of them were looking directly at the Prometheus. "They know we are here," Marcus whispered. "They always knew," Vigil said. "The absence remembers humanity. They remember the ships we built. They remember that we were the first species in millions of years to hurt them. When the Prometheus activated, they felt it. They have been searching for us ever since." The creature moved closer. Its tentacles reached out, grabbing chunks of rock from a nearby asteroid and pulling them into its body. Yuki watched as the stone dissolved, absorbed, becoming part of the creature. "It's feeding," Vance said. "That is what they do," Vigil replied. "They absorb everything they touch. Matter, energy, life. Nothing is wasted. Nothing survives." Yuki felt fear rise in her chest. She had heard stories about the absence, seen the recordings Vigil showed, but nothing prepared her for the reality of a creature created only for destruction. "Can we fight it?" she asked. "Yes," Vigil said. "The Prometheus was built for this purpose. Our weapons are designed to hurt them. But I must warn you, Captain, if we engage, others will come. The absence shares a collective consciousness. What one sees, all see. What one knows, all know. If we destroy this scout, the main swarm will learn our location. And if we don't fight, it will consume us. Then consume everything else," Vance said. The absence does not negotiate. The absence shows no mercy. The absence only hungers. Vance stepped forward. She sat in the command chair, her hands firm on the console. "Then we will fight," she said. "We will show them that humanity is not prey. We will show them what this ship is capable of." "Admiral," Yuki began. "I know the risks, Captain, but we built the Prometheus, not to hide. We built it to win." She looked at the screen, at the monster in the dark. "All stations, battle readiness. Prepare to engage." The crew reacted. They had slept for 200 years, but they hadn't forgotten their training. Soldiers took their posts. Engineers started the weapon systems. Pilots took control of the ship's movement. The Prometheus came to life. "Weapons online," an officer reported. "Spatial displacement, torpedoes loaded and ready, shields at maximum power, hull integrity at 100%, navigation locked. We can maneuver at your command, Admiral." Vance nodded. She watched the creature on the screen. It continued to move toward them, slow and patient, certain that nothing could harm it. It was about to learn otherwise. "Fire." The Prometheus fired a single torpedo. It was small, no larger than a human, but it carried technology banned for centuries, technology capable of breaking the very rules of reality. The torpedo struck the creature. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, space itself seemed to twist. A sphere of absolute darkness appeared at the point of impact, expanding and consuming everything it touched. The creature screamed. It was a sound no human should ever hear, a psychic wail that echoed in the mind of everyone on the ship. Yuki felt it like a knife in her brain, a wave of pure pain, rage, and hunger. Then the darkness collapsed. The torpedo had done its work. A third of the creature vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply erased from existence, as if it had never been. "Direct hit," Vigil announced. "Target severely damaged, but still functional. It is regenerating." Yuki watched with horror as the creature began to grow back. New tissue formed where the wound had been. New eyes opened. New tentacles reached into space. "How is this possible?" Marcus gasped. "The absence cannot be destroyed by conventional means," Vigil explained. "They regenerate after any damage, given time and resources. But spatial displacement weapons destroy their cellular structure. It slows their regeneration. It wounds them." "Then hit it again," Vance ordered. "Fire until nothing is left." The Prometheus fired again and again. Each torpedo erased another part of the creature. Each time, the monster screamed, thrashed, and tried to fight back. Its tentacles reached for the ship, but the Prometheus was too fast. It dodged, slipping through space, avoiding attacks, continuing to rain fire upon the enemy. Finally, after what felt like hours, the creature went still. Its body turned into a small, twisted mass of dying flesh. The eyes went out. The tentacles hung limp. "Target neutralized," Vigil said. The bridge plunged into silence. The crew stared at the screen, at the remains of what they had destroyed. No one spoke. No one moved. Then, slowly, someone started to clap. Yuki turned. It was one of the awakened soldiers, a young man with dark hair and a scar on his cheek. He was clapping, and his face was full of something she hadn't expected to see: hope. Others joined in. The applause spread across the bridge, then throughout the ship. Thousands of people celebrated a victory that should have been impossible. They had fought the absence. They had won. Vance stood from the command chair. She wasn't smiling. Her face was serious, thoughtful. "Vigil," she said, "you told us that when we kill this, the main swarm will know." "Yes." "How long until they come for us?" "Unknown. The absence moves in patterns that are difficult to predict. It could be weeks, it could be months. But they will come, Admiral. They will come for the Prometheus, and they will come for humanity. Then we need to be ready." Vance turned to the crew. "What we did today is only the beginning. We destroyed one scout, one ship, but the absence has millions, perhaps billions. If we want to survive, we need more than one victory. We need allies. We need resources. We need to wake humanity and prepare them for the war that is coming. The Concord will never help us," Yuki said. "They want to destroy us. Then we will let them know. We will show them the evidence. We will prove that the absence is real and that the only way to survive is to fight together." Vance walked to the main screen. The ancient races have hidden for millions of years. They have forgotten how to be brave, but somewhere deep inside, they remember. They remember the fear. They remember the truth. If we force them to face this truth, they may decide to stand with us. And if they refuse, Yuki turned to her. Her eyes were hard as steel. Then humanity will fight alone. We have done it before. We can do it again. The ship shuddered not from an attack, but from the activation of the jump drive. They were moving, leaping through space to a new location. Where are we heading? Yuki asked. The Concord fleet is approaching from the Central Worlds, Vigil explained. The Admiral has ordered an interception. She wishes to send a message. What message? Vance sat back in her chair. She looked at the stars on the screen, at the vast darkness that surrounded them, a darkness they would never forget. The Prometheus made the jump. Reality folded around them. And when they emerged, they were directly in the path of the Concord hunting fleet 12 ships, the best the ancient races could offer. Armed, armored, ready for war. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't know that everything was about to change. On the bridge of the Concord flagship, Supreme Arbiter Veriton watched his sensors with growing alarm. One moment, space was empty. The next, a ship appeared out of nowhere. A ship that shouldn't exist. A ship that had haunted his nightmares for 200 years. Prometheus, he whispered. His officers looked at him with fear. They knew the stories. They knew what this ship could do. Do we attack? One of them asked. Before Vance could respond, a message appeared on his screen from the human ship. It was only 2 words. We have arrived. He stared at the screen for a long time, then slowly gave the order. Cease fire. Open a channel. The face of a human woman appeared on his monitor. She was old, older than any human he had seen, with gray hair and eyes that had seen centuries. I am Admiral Alravens of the United Earthship Prometheus, she said. I have a warning for the Concord, and a question. Speak, the Arbiter said. The Absence is waking. They are coming for this galaxy. Every world, every species, everything you have built will be consumed if you do not fight. She leaned forward. My question is simple, Arbiter. When the darkness comes, will you stand with humanity, or will you die alone? The channel closed. The Prometheus hung in space, waiting for an answer. And across the galaxy, in the depths of the hollow void, thousands of lights began to flicker. The Absence felt the death of its scout. They remembered humanity, and they were coming. The galaxy burned. Supreme Arbiter Veriton stood in the Great Hall of the Concord Council, surrounded by representatives of 43 species. The hall was ancient, built millions of years ago by civilizations that no longer existed. It had witnessed treaties, alliances, and proclamations of peace. Now, it was witnessing fear. The border colonies have fallen, reported Delegate Vati, a creature of crystal and light. 17 worlds in the outer sectors. All contact lost within hours of the attack. Refugee ships are overwhelmed, added the military commander of the Torxians. Billions are fleeing toward the central worlds. We have no resources to shelter them all. Our fleets are being annihilated, another voice rang out. We have lost 400 capital ships in 2 weeks. 400! And we haven't destroyed a single enemy vessel. Veriton listened to the reports, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. He had lived 300 years. He had served the Concord his whole life. He believed in peace, in the treaty, and in the careful balance that ensured the galaxy's safety. Now, he was watching it all crumble. The Absence had come. As the human admiral had warned, they emerged from the hollow void in countless numbers, ships the size of moons, creatures capable of swallowing space stations whole, a hunger that devoured everything in its path. Concord flotillas tried to stop them. Battles lasted for hours. Thousands of ships fired everything they had at the advancing enemy. And when the smoke cleared, the Absence simply moved forward, barely slowed, leaving nothing behind but wreckage and silence. We cannot win this war, Veriton said quietly. The hall fell silent. Every gaze turned to him. Our weapons are ineffective. Our strategies are failing. We have spent millions of years forgetting how to fight, and now we are paying the price. He surveyed the faces of the creatures who had ruled the galaxy longer than humanity had existed. The Absence remembers us. They remember that we hid instead of fighting, and they have no mercy for cowards. What do you propose? Asked Delegate Vati. Surrender? Extinction? I propose asking for help. The words hung in the air. Everyone understood what he meant. Humans, someone said. You want to go to the humans? The Prometheus destroyed an Absence scout with a single blast of its weapon. Their technology can hurt the enemy. Their ships can fight. Veriton stepped into the center of the hall. 200 years ago, we forced humanity to disarm because we were afraid of them. We saw what they were building and believed they would turn it against us. We were wrong. We were not wrong. the military commander countered. Humans are dangerous. They are aggressive, violent, and unpredictable. If we give them power again, they will turn it against us, and if we don't, the absence will kill us all. At least with humans, there is a chance. Veriton looked directly at the commander. I met Admiral Vance. I looked into her eyes. She is not our enemy. She never was. We made her our enemy because we were afraid. So, what are you suggesting? Veriton took a deep breath. What he was about to say would end his career, perhaps his life. But it was the only way. I propose restoring full sovereignty to humanity. No restrictions, no oversight, no limits. Let them build ships and train soldiers. Let them fight a war we cannot win. He paused and prayed that when it was over, they would remember that they had asked for help. They had demanded submission. The vote took 3 hours. There were arguments, accusations, and threats. Several delegates walked out in protest, but in the end, the council agreed. They had no other choice. The message was sent to the Prometheus. Admiral Vance received it on the bridge, surrounded by officers. Yuki stood nearby, watching the text appear on the screen. They agreed, Vance said quietly. Full sovereignty. All restrictions lifted. They want us to fight. Do you trust them? Yuki asked. No, but it doesn't matter. We were going to fight anyway. At least now we will have resources. She turned to the crew. You heard the message? The Concord has surrendered. Humanity is free again. No one cheered. No one celebrated. They all understood what it meant. Freedom came with a price, and that price was war. Weigel, Vance said. What is the status of the hidden shipyards? The facilities in the Kepler system are intact, the AI reported. They have been kept in secret for 200 years by human colonists who believed this day would come. They have already started building new ships based on the Prometheus specifications. How many ships can they build? At full capacity, about 50 warships per month. However, we do not have 50 months. At the current rate of advancement, the absence will reach the central worlds in 6 months. Then we need to slow them down. Vance opened a tactical display. Weigel, you once told me that the Prometheus is not unique, that there are other ships hidden across the galaxy. Correct. 7 additional ships were built and hidden before the disarmament. Their locations were known only at the highest levels of the old government. Do you know where they are? I have the coordinates for all 7 ships. Shall I transmit an activation signal? Vance nodded. Wake them all. The signal went out. It raced through space at speeds that should have been impossible, transmitted by quantum entanglement through dimensions humans shouldn't have understood. And across the galaxy, in forgotten places on forgotten worlds, 7 ships received the call. Their names were ancient and mighty. Icarus, hidden in the heart of a dying star. Triton, buried beneath the ice of a frozen moon. Nemesis, drifting in the wreckage of a collapsed civilization. Athena, hidden in the clouds of a gas giant. Ares, waiting in the shadow of a black hole. Hestia, sleeping in the furnace of a volcanic world. And Ragnarok, the largest of them all, buried in the core of an asteroid the size of a small planet. One by one, they awakened. Their systems activated. Their crews were brought out of centuries of cryosleep, and they began to move, following the signal back toward the Prometheus. And Yuki watched the incoming reports. She saw signatures of massive ships appearing on the sensors across the galaxy. She heard the voices of people who had been asleep for 200 years, confused and terrified, but ready to fight. 8 ships, she said. 8 ships against an enemy numbering in the millions. 8 ships to start, Vance replied. More are being built every day, and we have something the absence has never faced, people who refuse to die. The Admiral stood. I have studied the absence. I have read every record, every report, every scrap of data. They are ancient, they are powerful, they are almost immortal, but they have a weakness. What weakness? They expect victory. They have been winning for millions of years. Every civilization they have encountered has either run or died. No one has ever stood against them, refusing to break. Vance smiled. It was a hard smile, full of anger and determination. Humans are different. We don't run, we don't surrender, and we don't stop fighting until the war is over. The Prometheus made another jump, appearing in the Kepler system where the hidden shipyards waited. The sight took Yuki's breath away. Massive orbital platforms hung in space around a barren planet. Construction docks the size of cities, foundries capable of producing metal by the megaton, and everywhere, people working, building, preparing. They were building not just ships. They were building weapons, tanks, fighters, bombs, things that had no names. Technology banned for 200 years was being recreated, improved, made even more deadly. "How many people are here?" Yuki asked. "Approximately 12 million, Vigil replied. "These are the descendants of the original workers who built the Prometheus. They kept the faith for generations, waiting for this moment. They believed we would return. They believed humanity would need them. And they were right. Ships began to launch from the docks. Not Prometheus-class vessels, but smaller warships, destroyers, and cruisers designed to support the main fleet. They were armed with the same spatial displacement weapons, capable of hurting the Absence in ways nothing else could. The other 7 Prometheus-class ships arrived over the next week. Yuki met their commanders, men and women who had been frozen for centuries, whose worlds were gone, whose families had long since died. They were ghosts from a forgotten era, but they were ready to fight. Admiral Vance gathered them all for a final briefing. "The Absence is moving toward the central worlds of the Concord," she explained, pointing to the tactical display of the enemy advance. "If they reach the heart of the galaxy, they will consume everything. Trillions of lives, thousands of worlds, everything the Concord has built. Then we will stop them," said Admiral Chen, commander of the Ragnarok. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm voice. "Where will we make our stand?" Vance pointed to a place on the map. "The Valoran Rift, a narrow pass between 2 nebulae. The Absence will have to funnel its forces through this point to reach the central worlds. We will hold this position. We will win time for the Concord to evacuate civilians and build defenses." "And if we cannot hold it?" asked Admiral Santos of the Nemesis. "Then we will retreat and try again and again until there is no place left to retreat to." Vance looked at each of them in turn. "I will not lie. We are facing an enemy that has destroyed civilizations older than the stars. We may not survive this war. But every day we fight is a day the galaxy lives. Every ship we destroy is one less killing innocent people. Every hour we win is an hour for someone else to be saved." She walked to the window, looking at the fleet gathering in space. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters. An army that had slept for 200 years had finally awakened. "Humanity was feared," she said. "The Concord looked at us and saw a threat. They saw our weapons, our ambitions, and our refusal to accept restrictions. They thought we were dangerous." She turned to face them. They were right. "We are dangerous, but not to them. Not anymore. We are dangerous to the Absence. We are dangerous to everything that threatens the people we have sworn to protect. And today, we will prove it." The meeting ended. The admirals returned to their ships. The fleet began to move. Yuki stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars race by as they jumped to the Valoran Rift. Marcus was nearby as always, quiet and confident. "Are you afraid?" she asked him. "Yes," he admitted. "I've been afraid since we found this ship. I've been afraid since I learned what was out there in the dark." "Me too." He looked at her. "But you're still going to fight." "We all are. Because what is the alternative? Run? Hide? Let everyone die while we look for a safe place?" She shook her head. "There is no safe place anymore. There is only the fight." The Prometheus dropped out of the jump. They were at the Valoran Rift, surrounded by swirls of gas and dust. The other 7 Prometheus-class ships appeared beside them. Behind them, the united forces of the Concord gathered thousands of ships from 43 species, united for the first time against a common enemy. And in front of them, filling the sky like a wall of darkness, was the Absence. They were everywhere. Ships beyond counting, creatures the size of planets, a swarm stretching across the void, blotting out the stars. Yuki felt her breath catch. She knew there were many of them. She hadn't understood what that meant until now. "All ships report readiness," Vigil announced. "The enemy is advancing. Contact in 15 minutes. Vance sat in the command chair. Her face was calm, her hands firm. "All ships," she said. Her voice broadcast to every vessel in the fleet. "This is Admiral Vance. Today we fight for the survival of our galaxy. Today we fight for our homes, our families, and our future. The enemy thinks we are weak. The enemy thinks we will break. The enemy is wrong." She leaned forward. "Show them what humanity is capable of." The fleet surged forward. The Prometheus led the attack. Its weapons powered up. The crew was ready for the battle that would decide the fate of everything. And in the darkness ahead, the Absence watched their approach. For the first time in millions of years, they met an enemy that did not run. For the first time, they met humanity. And for the first time, they felt something almost forgotten: doubt. The battle for the Valoran Rift began at dawn. Not that there was a true dawn in space, but the humans had set their clocks to Earth time, and the first weapon fired just as the sun would have risen over a world most of them had never seen. It felt right, a new day, a new beginning, or perhaps the end. Yuki watched from the bridge of the Prometheus as the fleet engaged. Spatial displacement torpedoes struck first, tearing holes in reality, erasing chunks of enemy vessels from existence. The absence screamed. Their psychic wails echoed in the minds of every creature in the system, but they didn't stop. They kept coming, wave after wave, an endless stream of hunger and destruction. The Icarus reports heavy damage to the forward sections, Weigel announced. The Hestia has lost its main weapon, 14 support ships destroyed in the first exchange. Order them to hold the line, Vance commanded. Her voice was calm, but Yuki saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the armrests of the command chair. We cannot let them break through. The battle raged for hours. Ships died on both sides. Spatial displacement weapons hurt the absence in ways nothing else could, but there were simply too many of them. For every creature destroyed, 10 others followed. The fleet was pushed back, meter by meter, ship by ship. Marcus worked at his console, coordinating repair teams across the ship. His face was covered in sweat, his hands moving constantly. He hadn't slept in 2 days but refused to leave his post. "Hull breach on deck 17, he reported. "Sealing it now. Energy fluctuations in the reactor. Switching to reserves. Keep us in the fight," Yuki said. "Do whatever it takes." "I always do." Outside, the Ragnarok carved a path through the enemy swarm. It was the largest of the Prometheus-class ships, a monster of metal and fire, capable of battling the largest absence creatures. Admiral Chen commanded it with cold efficiency, directing weapons into the heart of the enemy formation. But even the Ragnarok couldn't fight forever. "They are targeting our engines," Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "We are losing mobility. I will have to withdraw." "Negative," Vance replied. "We need you on the front line, Admiral. If I stay here, they will destroy us, and you will be 1 ship short." Before Vance could respond, an absence creature the size of a moon slammed into the side of the Ragnarok. The explosion was visible from every ship in the fleet, a flower of fire and debris spreading through the void. When the dust cleared, the Ragnarok was still there, damaged and leaking atmosphere, but alive. "That was close," Chen said. There was something strange in his voice, not fear, something else. "Admiral, I have an idea, but you won't like it." "Speak." "The absence has a central intelligence, a controlling mind that coordinates the swarm. It is hiding deep within their formation, protected by millions of smaller vessels. If we destroy it, the swarm will lose its integrity. They will become mindless, directionless. We will be able to defeat them." "We have tried to reach it," Vance said. "Their defenses are too strong. Not for 1 ship moving at full speed. I will break through. The Ragnarok possesses enough power to destroy the central mind. If I can get close enough." Silence filled the channel. Everyone understood what he was saying. "Admiral Chen," Vance said slowly. "This would be a one-way ticket. I know, but it is the only way. We are losing this battle. If we don't do something radical, the absence will break our lines and reach the central worlds. Trillions will die. There must be another way." "There is not. I have run the calculations. Weigel has confirmed them. The only ship with enough power to destroy the central mind is the Ragnarok. And the only way to deliver that power is the detonation of our 0-point core at direct contact range." The bridge of the Prometheus went silent. Yuki felt tears welling in her eyes. She had met Admiral Chen only once, a brief conversation in the corridors of the flagship. He had seemed kind, gentle, not the kind of man who would sacrifice himself to save the galaxy. But perhaps that was exactly what such people were capable of. "Admiral Vance," Chen continued, "I need your permission. The crew of the Ragnarok has voted. They agree with my plan. They are ready to die for this cause." Vance closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with something Yuki hadn't seen before. Grief, pride, love. "Permission granted," she whispered. "Go with honor, Admiral Chen. Go with the gratitude of every living creature in this galaxy." "Thank you, Admiral. It has been an honor serving with you." A pause. "Tell humanity that we didn't forget who we are. Tell them that when the darkness came, we chose to be the light." The Ragnarok began to move. It accelerated toward the enemy formation. Engines burned at maximum power. The absence tried to stop it. Ships threw themselves in its path. Creatures reached out with tentacles, trying to grab and tear it apart. The Ragnarok didn't slow down. It plowed through everything in its way, leaving a trail of destruction behind it. Weapons fired, constantly clearing the road. Shields flickered and died. The hull cracked and broke, but it continued, driven by something stronger than metal and energy. It was driven by will. Yuki watched on the screen as the Ragnarok reached the center of the enemy formation. The Central Intelligence was there, a creature so vast it defied comprehension. It was made of 1,000,000 consumed ships, 1,000,000,000 consumed lives. It was the heart of the absence, the mind that controlled the swarm. The Ragnarok slammed into it at full speed, and then the ship detonated its zero-point core. The explosion was unlike anything Yuki had ever seen. A sphere of absolute darkness expanded from the point of impact, consuming everything it touched. The Central Intelligence tried to escape, tried to flee, but it was too slow. The collapse of space overtook it and tore it apart, erasing it from reality. The sphere expanded, seemingly forever. Then, it collapsed inward and vanished, leaving nothing behind. Nothing but silence. The absence stopped moving. Across the battlefield, their ships went still. Their creatures floated aimlessly, eyes darkened, tentacles hanging limp. Without the controlling mind to guide them, they had become nothing more than animals. Dangerous animals. Yes, but animals. The swarm is disorganized, Vigil reported. They are no longer coordinating attacks. We can defeat them now. Vance stood from her chair. Her face was wet with tears, but her voice was strong. All ships, fire at will. Destroy the enemy. Avenge the Ragnarok. The fleet surged forward. The battle became a slaughter. The absence, deprived of its guiding mind, fell by the thousands, by the millions. The Prometheus-class ships led the attack. Their weapons tore through the helpless enemy. It took another 3 days to finish them, 3 days of constant fighting, hunting down every last creature, ensuring not a trace of the absence remained. When it was over, the fleet gathered in the center of the battlefield. There were fewer ships now. The Ragnarok was gone. The Icarus had been destroyed in the final push. The Hestia had sustained damage so severe that repairs would take years. But they had won. The galaxy was saved. Admiral Vance addressed the fleet one last time. "We won a great victory today," she said, "but it cost a terrible price. Admiral Chen and the crew of the Ragnarok gave their lives so that we might live. Thousands of others died beside them. We must never forget their sacrifice." She paused, looking at the stars. For 200 years, humanity was told we were too dangerous to be free. We were told our weapons were too powerful, our ambitions too great. We were led to believe that we were a threat to the galaxy. Her voice grew stronger. Today, we proved them wrong. We used our power not for conquest. We used it to protect. We fought not for dominance. We fought for survival, for our allies, for the future of every living creature in this galaxy. She raised her hand in a salute. This is who humanity is. Not a threat, not a danger, but a shield against the darkness, a light in the void, a hope for those who have none. The fleet responded with a salute. Thousands of ships, millions of people, humans and aliens together, united in victory and grief. The war had ended, but the work was only beginning. A year later, Yuki stood in a memorial garden on Earth. She had never been to humanity's homeworld before. It was beautiful, more beautiful than she had imagined. Blue skies, green trees, the sound of birds singing in the distance. It was nothing like the cold, metallic corridors of the Wanderer, nothing like the vast void of space. It was home. The memorial garden had been built in honor of those who died in the war. On stone walls, the names of thousands were carved. Each represented a person who had given their life so others could live. Admiral Chen's name was near the very top, along with all those who had served on the Ragnarok. Marcus walked up to her. He was in civilian clothes. His days as a scavenger were behind him. He had been offered a position in the new human government, a role related to rebuilding and protecting the colonies affected by the war. He had accepted. "It's strange," he said, "being here after everything we went through." "I know what you mean." Yuki looked at the names on the wall. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. Sometimes I wake up and think I'm still on the Wanderer, scavenging for scrap, barely surviving. Do you miss the old life?" She considered the question. She thought about the years spent drifting alone through space, forgotten by everyone. She thought about the message that changed everything, about the coordinates that led her to a ship that shouldn't exist. "No," she said finally. "I don't miss it. I was surviving. Now, I am living." They stood in silence for a while, watching the sun move across the sky. Prometheus is undergoing repairs, Marcus said. Admiral Vance says it will be ready for service in 6 months. The Concord is building its own ships using the technology we shared. In a few years, every species in the galaxy will have weapons for defense. Do you think the absence will return? Weigel says there might be others out there, in the void between galaxies, sleeping and waiting for their chance. He shrugged. But if they return, we will be ready. The entire galaxy will be ready. Yuki nodded. She looked at the sky, at the stars that were just beginning to appear in the fading light. Do you remember what Admiral Chen said before he died? He said to tell humanity that we hadn't forgotten who we are. I think about that a lot. About who we are. About who we are meant to be. She smiled. It was a real smile, the first one she had felt in a long time. For 200 years we forgot. We let the Concord convince us that we were dangerous, and we believed them. We gave up our weapons, our ambitions, and our dreams. She turned to face him, but we never truly forgot. Deep inside, in places we don't talk about, we remembered. We remembered that we are explorers, builders, fighters. We remembered that when the darkness comes, humans don't run, humans stand and fight. She looked back at the names on the wall. We do this for them, for everyone who died so that we would have this chance. Above them, the stars shone brightly. Among them, invisible to the naked eye, was the Prometheus. It hung in orbit around Earth, a symbol of humanity's past and future. It was being repaired, improved, made ready for any challenges ahead. In shipyards around the planet, new ships were being built, not just military, but research vessels, colony ships, scientific stations. Humanity was reaching for the stars again, not with fear but with hope. The Concord had changed, too. Old treaties were being rewritten, restrictions were being lifted. For the first time in millions of years, the ancient races were learning to be brave again. They were learning that hiding from the darkness only made it stronger. They were learning from humanity. Yuki took one last look at the memorial garden. Then she turned and walked away, Marcus at her side. There was work to do protecting the galaxy, building a future. And somewhere out there, in the vast void between stars, the absence waited. But humanity was waiting too. The next time the darkness came, it would find them ready. It would find them standing together, humans and aliens, looking into the void without fear. It would discover that humanity hadn't forgotten who they were, and it would learn, as many had before, that there were species in the universe that refused to be prey. Species that, when pushed to the edge, fought back. Species that would rather burn than bend. Humanity was one of those species. They always had been, and they always would be. The stars had learned an old truth, forgotten in the age of peace. Humanity was dangerous not because of what they built, but because of what they were prepared to become. And that made all the difference.